Yo, it's the exam coach checking in with you. I am delivering this podcast standing up this time around because I just have more energy. Last time, I was lacking energy. I was sitting down, I was slumped. I use a standing desk all day, so I stand up and work. Again, this is not something that I've done my whole life. It was something that I only started doing in 2016 when I started working for VaynerMedia. I didn't actually have a desk when I started. I had a standing desk. Well, it was a cabinet on a bay window, and I just used it, and I suppose I never got used to sitting down. So here I am standing up, and I actually really like working this way. Try it out. It does kill the quads for a bit, first couple of days, but those things power up, and then you're able to crack out pretty good work sessions because it's very difficult to get tired when you're on your feet. If you've ever done a bar job or restaurant waiting, you've really got a lot of energy for that thing. One, because the chef's yelling at you, and two, you're just not allowed to sit down really. You're constantly on the move, and in a weird way, more and more energy just comes about. Don't quite know the science behind that, but it just feels true to me, and definitely from personal experience, that was the case. So I digress. What are we going to talk about today? Today, we're going to talk about some of the key things I've seen in the Snapchat DM private messages that I was getting over the course of this weekend. I ploughed through about 300 this past weekend, and there were some key trends that I saw, and I want to pick those trends out, talk about them, talk about my general recommendation to them, all the problems I was given for ranging from GCSE revision to smartphone management to emotional ups and downs, things that anyone goes through. And I really like direct message on social media, private message, because what it does is you can be really honest, and you can get a really good sense of what the person actually thinks and what their real issues are, and what their real opinions are, as opposed to what they say in the public comments, which, to be honest, as a general rule in social media, I try and spend as least amount of time as possible there in the general comment section, because there's so many factors that go into that, which mean that people often don't say what they truly think and often say inflammatory things to get attention. And it's just not really, in my opinion, worth spending that much time there, because you don't get a worthwhile debate. On some comment threads you do, but on many you don't, because it's a public environment where people aren't really held accountable for what they say, and it just gets all a bit messy in there. I'd much prefer private messaging because it's genuine, it's authentic. You're not doing it for show, you're not doing it because of other people's opinion, you're just doing it because it's what you actually want to do, say, think, and it's where you can actually make progress. So let's talk about some of the things that I saw popping up, and I just want to rattle through them. I've got 5 down here, so I'm gonna crack through them all, and hopefully this will be of value to you, and you can take away some general pointers for some of these things if they do come up for you as well, which they might do. So one of the first things I was seeing a lot of is a phrase, and the phrase was, "I can't revise." So I look at that and I'm saying, okay, so it could be a number of things. You could just have like a mental block. You could be getting distracted a lot. It could just be an attitude thing where you actually just don't want to put the work in that you need to in order to revise. But oftentimes the student would say, okay, I get down to work at my desk and I just get distracted. I just can't do this thing. So then I said, okay, let's try some physical safeguards. So to do well or better in anything, one of the best ways you can approach the situation is take yourself away from the situation. So leave the revision, go to another environment where you can be totally objective about your behavior and you can think in a level-headed way, and set up some physical safeguards. So by this I mean, what are the things that are distracting you? How can you nullify them? For example, your smartphone. A lot of people recommend airplane mode, turning it off, face down, in another room, all that stuff. Now those are physical safeguards. Yeah, you can do them. I think they're okay. They might stop you from being distracted, but at the same time, I think the phone can come in very useful, right? You want to be able to Google things, search things, use apps, integrate it into your revision somehow. So my real recommendation for anything in the I can't revise category is you've got to get your mental game up. You got to get some mental strength there, and it's at the end of the day a decision that you're making every time between what's easy and what's difficult. Anybody can get distracted. Anybody can muck around on their smartphone, go and eat some Walker's crisps. I don't know why I thought of that. Just a snack of some sort. Go and just game or watch TV, just random shows that you don't even really care about, but you're just watching them, or watch that series that you really care about and you're addicted to because they keep on leaving you on cliffhangers, and then every episode's an hour long and your day just evaporates. I've been there, and it's a mental choice. You have a decision to make in that split second where you decide to be distracted or you decide to actually persevere for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes more with that revision session and see if you can find some momentum and get in that revision zone where you actually start working through your notes, verbalizing it, internalizing it, getting that stuff that you need to learn and really hammering it home. And everybody knows what that internal dialogue's like. You stand there or you sit there and you've got a decision to make. It's your choice, and you need to figure out a way. One of the best ways I've found is taking yourself away from the situation, making some goals, understanding what you actually want to do long term, making that really, really clear with yourself, advertising to yourself, putting up posters, putting up things on your phone, pictures, images, reminders of what your goals are, what you actually want to do long term. So the short term biases and the short term impulsive behavior isn't going to dominate and take over there. So the recommendation there is if you don't think you can get down to revision at all, take yourself away from the situation. Really decide what you want to do long term. What do you want to pick a thing that you want to be when you're older. I know you might not know this yet, but just think about what you would like your setup life to be like in 10 years' time and what is needed to get you there. What kind of freedom do you want to have? What kind of options do you want to have? What kind of people do you want to be spending your time with? Where do you want to be living, maybe? All these kind of things. What passions do you want to pursue? What would you like your job to involve to some extent? Creativity, facts, maths, art, could be anything, music, all those things. And then try and match that up with the exams that you're doing and some of the skills, which I've mentioned in previous podcasts and videos, that exams teach. How could it be useful? How could they open up more options for you? How could you actually get something out of this progress? Now, if you decide, look, I just don't want to do the revision and I'm going to accept the long-term consequences of that, whether that's not being able to have as many options, not being able to taste as many things, because I'm absolutely certain that I want to do this one thing and I'm committed every day from now on to making myself better at this career goal that I have, and I'm gonna do it. Great, do that. I'm not saying don't. But what I am saying is, if you don't know what you want to do, if the field's very open at the moment, if you want to keep your options open, look at exams and say, right, how can I really extract something valuable out of this? Because they are valued. They do hold worth and they do get you places. They open doors, they give you skills that are transferable, and you should really think carefully about how you can frame up the situation much more long term, less short term and impulsive. And every time you've got that decision between distraction and getting down to a bit of work, you should just go through that goal setting process of what do I actually want to do long term. And I know that every day I've got to put a little bit towards that. I've got to make a deposit. I've got to put a check in the bank, and I will get there in the end. And that none of these things come easy. Come easy. You've got to put work in. There's no magic to it. It's just consistent work over an extended period of time. It's difficult to do. That's why it's desirable, and people value it. Okay, next thing I saw was I would often get comments such as, I'm bad at insert subject. It could be anything. I'm bad at maths. I'm bad at science. That's a very definitive statement. And the key takeaway there is it's a difference between something that I definitely had at the beginning maybe of my school career versus the end, the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. So the fixed mindset is the idea that everything's fixed in a way. You can't really change it. The way you are, your intelligence, how good you are at anything, what you're like as a person, your characteristics, all of it is unchangeable. That's what you believe if you have a fixed mindset. Everything just stays the same. You're dealt a certain hand in life, and that's it. You can't do anything about it. You can't change it. You can't improve it. That's it. The growth mindset is you can do stuff, you can get better, you can change things if you put work in. If you change certain factors in how you do things every day and accumulate gains over time, you will grow, you will change. You can really mold anything, your intelligence, your ability in a certain subject, to whatever you want it to be, according to the amount of concentrated practice you put in. And this is really, really important, because I think a lot of students can have experiences where they naturally don't think they're very good at something. So, for example, I know there are a few instances where there's been a bad relationship with a teacher early on. The teacher has made them feel as if they are just naturally pretty crap at a subject, which is just incorrect, really. It's not true, and you can improve if you put the work in. The thing that often happens is that students are discouraged from putting any work in because that teacher has made them feel as if no matter how much work they put in, they're never going to get better, which again isn't true. If you really focus on where you can improve, you identify your sticking points, get down to work and sit there and really try and figure it out, spend the time, ask for help, look for new teachers who are positive about your growth, you're going to be able to do stuff and improve. And this whole ability to solve problems and surpass your own expectations is a skill you just have to acquire. It's so important because it's useful throughout life. And when you stop thinking about how you can grow and progress, exams are a perfect training field for this, where you're constantly trying to break through the next grade barrier, whether you're on a if you're talking GCSEs a 6 and you want to get up to a 7, you've got to figure out, what do I need to do to get a 7? Like, what's the roadmap? It becomes more difficult in later life because there often isn't always a clear roadmap. Yeah, if you're working in a corporate environment within a company, there often is, because they have, for example, training programs, and the HR department often say, okay, you need to acquire these skills, you need to have this experience, and then you can get promoted to this, and you can have this amount of responsibility. When you're working for yourself, it's a bit more difficult because there is no real clear map, but you constantly try and look on your own initiative what you can do to grow and improve. Really, really deciding for yourself which mindset you're going to have, and it is just a choice. There is compelling evidence to say that people can change and grow, and there's compelling evidence to say if people think they're just fixed and they're not going to change, and this is how life's meant to be for them, they'll lose energy, life will become very boring and mundane and negative. And it is your choice just to every day work on that, figure out what makes you feel energized and as if you're going to really attack the day and try and make some improvements, and what doesn't, and focus on what you can improve the whole time. Focus on your growth and really putting in the effort to make the change. The third thing that really came up a lot was, hey, exam coach, I've tried every technique, every revision technique in the book, flashcards, mind maps, colours, everything, and nothing works. Now, to me, this is a bit fixed mindset-y. It's the idea that you've tried as hard as you can, but there's no growth coming, and you can't find that code, and you're just willing to settle for not doing much. But then on the other hand, I really, really like the idea that they're coming and asking for help. It's so important. If you're listening to this and you do need help, ask the question. I used to do this the whole time. I just never used to ask because I was embarrassed, or I just thought, oh, they won't want to answer my stupid question, or I just can't be bothered, or yeah, I don't know. I just would often feel like I just didn't want to ask a question. I just wasn't bothered. But it's that split decision that you make. Are you going to ask it? Are you not? Just get on the phone, do it, send it. Cool. It might not feel very comfortable for you, but get it over to someone who can help, and they will help you. And it's in those split decisions that you will find you're able to make some progress and get some help. But the one question that I would ask yourself, if you're saying, I've tried every technique and nothing's worked, ask yourself, how hard are you trying with each technique? So one thing that I definitely found for me was I would often give up at things where I felt like I'd tried hard, but actually my perspective on what hard work and trying hard and persevering with something was so distorted because I just hadn't really worked hard before. I hadn't persevered. I hadn't applied myself. So a good metaphor that I like to use here is, have you ever, and I'm sure you have, you've been looking around for something. Usually it could be at a dinner time with your family, and you got to go and get the salt and pepper out the cupboard, depending on what you're eating, obviously, the seasoning. And you you go in there and you're like, I can't find it. I can't find the salt and pepper. It's not here. We've lost it. And you go to a family member and you say, hey, got no salt and pepper. And then they come and look in the cupboard and it's right in front of your nose. You just haven't seen it. It's almost a blind spot that you've had. You haven't seen it. And when you come back and you look from a different perspective, you think, how did I not see that? And this is one of the exercises I think that you should try and do with your hard work. Step back, be self-aware, and think, what am I actually doing when I'm sitting down and doing these revision techniques? Am I just staring blankly at the flashcard? Because that's what I was doing. I was just like, why isn't this stuff going into my head? I'm staring at it, I'm looking at it. What I wasn't doing is I wasn't actually reading through the words actively and saying them out loud and really thinking about, it sounds silly, but what they actually mean and how they relate to the stuff I'm trying to learn. Often I'd be just staring blankly at them and thinking about something else on social media, messages, things like that. And it's not proper revision. Your mind is not actually engaged in that. And the other thing is just how long you are sitting there and how much mental effort you're putting in. So I went to a boarding school, meaning I got to see what everyone was doing right up from the moment they got up to the moment we went to bed. We were all in dorms and stuff, and then as you got older, you had your own room. But still, I got to see how everybody behaved, what everyone's view of hard work was, or a lot of work, and me included. And we all got better at this at the end, but I think a lot of people just had there was a disconnect between what they said they were doing and what they were actually doing. So we would say we were working hard, but if you actually look at it, you're not. You're watching Netflix and then glancing at a few revision cards for 5 minutes and then watching Netflix again. Or you're having a massive conversation with some other bloke in a room just about footy, and then you're doing 2 minutes of just quick glancing at a sheet, write a few quick answers down, not really look into them, not research them, not properly sit there and time out a session where you just block everything out and you just say, okay, I'm just focusing on this. I'm going to read the information. I'm going to cross-reference with the textbook, and I'm going to really think about what this means. And I'm going to focus on just concentrating on this information as hard as I possibly can and really understanding it for what it is and what all the words mean and how they connect. All that kind of stuff, I just think is so important. It sounds incredibly basic, but it made me realize that everybody has a different understanding of what hard work and effort actually is, and I think this has a lot to do with their experiences in life, their upbringing. For example, you'll get some people who think that just menial tasks for others, such as showering, getting ready, eating, is actual work. It's a task that almost takes a little bit of energy out of their system, whereas for some people, eating, showering, getting changed, that's a break in their day. That's a time to reset. It's just a totally different approach where I think the people who see the menial tasks as breaks, as just little filler periods, not as an effort, not as a drain, they've just stepped back a bit more, assess their approach, and look for ways that they can actually just put in more hard work. They've taken the time to step back and change their perspective on what is hard work and what is not hard work, what is a break and what is not a break, and really focusing on when they have got a task to do, they absolutely focus on it. They don't let their mind wander. And the more you do this, you're going to get better and better at it. It's a growth mindset thing again. But you've got to take the first step of just sitting down and doing it and persevering with these revision techniques and thinking that, look, human beings have evolved over a number of years. We're all wired in similar-ish ways. There's a number of studies that have been conducted into different ways we learn information and retain it. And there's only so many techniques you can use, right? Having an app on your phone, constant reminders coming up, writing stuff down regularly, going from simple information to complex information, then back down again. All this stuff is set, and it's kind of a menu of options you've got, and it's up to you to really pick one and say, right, this is the one that I'm finding the most traction with at the moment. But you have to give it a chance. You have to work hard enough to actually have it work for you a little bit, instead of just giving up at the first hurdle and saying nothing works and then throwing the towel in. You've got to persevere with this. So the fourth thing that I saw a lot of was pretty blunt statements such as "give me tips" or "I need help." This to me is just, it's big alarm bells, because for me this indicates a sense of entitlement, a sense of I'm owed grades, or I can't do anything unless I'm helped. So it's interesting that there was a lot of this coming up. I think if you find yourself in this mindset, you've really got to think about how you are actually going to work towards those exam results. Exam results are earned, they're not given. You need to put work in, and a lot of it has to be done off your own initiative. Nobody is going to carry you there or kind of do it for you. It's you and the paper, it's you and the books. That's why I love it so much, actually, as well, because it's really difficult to get someone to hold your hand through the whole exam process. Yeah, a lot of people are teed up based on the quality of school they've gone to, or the help or tutoring they've got around them. But really, it's a great playing field in that with the internet and the amount of resources out there now, especially, you can make what you will of this opportunity. And it's your responsibility to take the initiative. I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast just the other day, and he was mentioning he knows 40-year-old dudes, women, who just can't take care of themselves, just don't have that independence, are constantly in this mindset of give me tips or I need help. And I totally get it. You're not 40, you're a teenager if you're probably listening to this, and that you've got so much growth and learning left to do. And whatever level you're at the moment, you should be happy with that and just be looking forward. But it's important for you to know that this mindset and this attitude can stay with you. And it's pretty gutting to see that there are full-grown adults that just aren't independent, just cannot get stuff done on their own, will constantly be running back to their mum and dad asking for money, help, stuff that really an independent adult should be handling on their own. And if they're healthy and happy and growing, it should be an incentive on you to want to know how to be independent, to learn that, and to put yourself through that kind of stretch phase, that growth phase of not just looking to be spoon-fed the whole time, actually saying, look, can I just figure this out myself? Can I just sit down, read this information and think, if I didn't have anybody to tell me what to do, what would I do? It's a great exercise to do that. It's especially great exercise if you're interested in going into business or in your career. A lot of people, I think, don't ask themselves that question. And oftentimes, if you do, you find that you come up with some really good ideas that you can test out and try. And yeah, you might fail. And I'm not saying you're going to succeed when you trial and error something in your revision technique or your study, but it'll give you that idea that it'll give you that sense, that you have full control of what you're doing. You can make changes. You can take control. You can really steer this ship wherever you want, and building that skill. And so you don't end up being 40, or I know people in their mid-20s who still need to be spoon-fed stuff, can't really fend for themselves and do stuff. It's a real tough spot to be in, because you're always going to need these crutches of other people helping you out. And I think what's really nice is to be able to help other people out. That's very rewarding. And in order to do that, you have to be independent to a certain extent. Obviously, getting help from other people is nice, and there's different contexts in which it's not as much the person leaning on the other person, rather it's just one person helping another. But think about that. The other thing that I kept on seeing was people saying they were constantly distracted or had emotional ups and downs, which meant that they found it very difficult to work and find themselves in a positive state to actually get down to work and start working towards something that is difficult. And my one recommendation here is, and I'm going to be doing a lot more research and reading into this because it is important. I think emotional health is just as important as physical health, and you've really got to set up a routine and system around what you do. Just like people work out, go to the gym, eat healthy, drink water to stay physically healthy, there are things you need to be doing in order to stay emotionally healthy, especially when you are in that development stage of the teenage years, early 20s, whenever actually throughout life, you should be doing this emotional regimen to keep yourself upbeat, positive, in a good place, and feeling like, life's good, you're enjoying it, you can make some progress, and you can actually make the day worthwhile. I think one thing that I would recommend here is my advertising background impacts a lot of the things I say, just because I have spent the majority of 2016, 2018 in a large global advertising agency making ads, running adverts to get people's attention, figuring out how all the social media networks work in terms of what content gets people's attention, what makes people think certain things, and how do you actually operate a business on those channels. The thing I'd say as a consumer, or from a consumer perspective, is you have to assess how the content you consume every day makes you feel, and then you have to make a decision on what you are and are not going to watch. And it's tough because a lot of these ads and platforms are tapping into thousands of years of cognitive development, which makes human beings more susceptible to click on certain things or view certain things than other things. All the way from how fast something moves on a screen to what color it is, for example. That impacts the extent to which you are likely to click on it or not, and how long you're likely to watch that video for and not. Really, really important that you understand that these algorithms on the social media sites are just going to keep on shoving stuff that you click on into your feed. That's one pillar of what they do, at least, is designed to give you what you want to see. So if you keep on clicking on certain things that really, if you step back from the situation, look at them, and that particular, it could be an influencer, it could be a video content series, it could be a news story. If that doesn't make you feel good, if it doesn't add value to you, if it doesn't really make you think about things that you want to think about, then I'd encourage you, without obviously shutting down yourself to everything that's going on so that you become some sort of hermit. Although I do think periods of really blocking out stuff in the world can be useful. Really think about that in order to decide, this is what I want to spend, for example, the first 20 pieces of content I look at in my day. Maybe you look at your phone 5 times in the morning. Just be a bit more conscious about what you look at. It does impact you. It does have an effect on how you think and how you feel, both in the moment and throughout the whole day. For example, I'm sure some of you may have watched the news one day or watched a certain video in the morning, and then you go to bed at night and something pops into your head and you say, hey, why am I thinking about that? That's odd. And then you cast your mind back to earlier on in the day and you realize that actually it was that thought that you had when you watched the news, or you watched a piece of content, or you watched some show. It could be whatever. But control that. Think about it. How does it make you feel? Does it empower you to do more? If it doesn't, vet it out the feed a bit. Say, on every social network, you can say hide this or don't see any more of this. You can change your feed and dictate what the algorithm serves to you to a certain extent. So I'm checking out. I hope this was useful. If you have any questions, hit me up on WhatsApp or Snapchat. Oh, and one other thing, let me know if there's any kind of podcast episode you'd like to hear, and I will have a look at making it and see what I can put together. I'm checking out.